Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, important Kentucky Derby prep at Aqueduct on Saturday. It's the Grade 2 Wood Memorial. We're going a mile and an eighth. Let's take a look at this full field of three-year-olds running for $750,000 in purse money. The six clear the air cross entered in the bluegrass. He's going to run there. That will leave us with a field of 12. And Mike, your morning line favorite, the winner of the Withers at a mile and an eighth at Aqueduct Hit Show, is mired in a very tough outside post position. Manny Franco's got his work cut out.
He's going to have to work out some kind of a trip from out there, Dan. Moving in one post position, I guess, helps him. I think the other thing that potentially helps him here is it feels like there's a good amount of speed in this race. And I feel like if you get some horses to come out of the gate running, looking for position, Hit Show might be able to work his way over if this field stretches out a little bit into that first turn.
Timeform US agrees with your assessment. We throw up the pace projector. There's the red bar indicating a fast pace. Uncle Jake, a maiden winner at Laurel for Brittany Russell, expected to make the lead according to Timeform US. Mr. Swagger, stretching out around 2 turns for the first time, is also fast. And Arctic Arrogance, the New York bred, has shown a lot of speed as well. I think even with removing the blinkers, Arctic Arrogance will be aggressively ridden.
Yeah, I think all three of those horses that the pace projector has forward, I think they're all going to come out of there and at least try to make the lead in this race. And I think that I agree with you. I think it's true of Arctic Arrogance. The blinkers are coming off, but that's his running style, Dan. He's a horse who wants to be forward in his races. And I doubt they're going to take that away from him as they press on here in another race where they're trying to get some points for the Derby, I guess.
The number 1 Dream Like is a very expensive son of Gunrunner. He is 7-2 on our colleague David Aragona's morning line, despite the fact that he is still a 2-race maiden. Here's his most recent start, a fast race at Gulfstream going a mile and a 16th. He earned a 91 Beyer speed figure. He was odds on, and he just couldn't get past this Longshot.
I mean, he has every chance to win here, Dan. I don't think you would say this is a terrible performance. They leave the rest of these horses very far behind. And, you know, as hard as it is to tell how good the horse that wound up winning the race was at a pretty big price, I mean, that horse was a first-time starter for Mott. So maybe that horse is just pretty good. This horse losing at 1-5 was a disappointment last time, but it's not like it was a terrible performance. He's shown some potential in both of his starts, and I think it's a good sign for him that Pletcher elects to run him in this race, Dan. He's got a great post.
Nice inside post position, as Mike mentioned. Nice running style. Looks to have the tactical speed that if he gets an alert break, Jose Ortiz can sort of park him right in behind the leaders and give him a little bit of a breather on the backstretch run while saving ground. The 2 is Shadow Dragon for trainer Bill Mott. This is a New York bred who ran very well in the Holy Bull in his seasonal debut. Last time out in the Fountain of Youth, he didn't run as well. Listen, he caught Forte last time out, the divisional leader to the 2-year-old champion. That horse came back to win the Florida Derby with a 95 Beyer. He's getting class relief here.
Yeah, that's probably true. He's still got an awful lot to prove, though, because as good as his Holy Bull was, it's not like he had some kind of huge excuse in that race, and ultimately just wasn't that strong of a race. He ran against some better horses last time. He was no factor. He has no real speed at all, Dan, but maybe this race will set up well for him.
Knox is going to be one of the bigger prices on the board. This horse's lone lifetime victory came sprinting over a sloppy surface. His most recent race came going 7/8 of a mile. He was entered for $50,000 in this race. He fell far behind early. He's going to get up for second. Now he stretches out. His only 2-turn race was okay, a third-place effort in reality, a race in where he might have benefited from a fast pace up front.
Yeah, maybe he'll get another one here. I doubt it's going to be enough for him to make a serious impact on this race, Dan. He's 50-1 on the line for a reason. He's really, really hard to make any kind of a sensible case for in this race.
General Banker, the number 4, has only won once. He's banked almost $500,000. He always shows up with his A game, and if you give him pace, he's the kind of horse that will be running at the end to pick up a piece, as he did in the Jerome win third, as he did in the Weathers when a well-beaten third, as he did in the Gotham when a well-beaten third. He's probably not good enough to win this race, but if the pace is fast, you can depend on him to kick, and maybe he livens up your tries and supers again.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, he was never a factor in any one of those last 3 races, Dan, but he ran fine in those races to get a piece of it. I mean, I guess if nothing else, if you're going to wind up starting your career 1 for 11, the one might as well come when they're putting up 500,000 for New York Reds.
Slip Mahoney is the number 5, and this one's going to be trying 2 turns for the first time. He certainly has the pedigree to appreciate this distance. And this horse gave Tapit Trice all he could handle back in December at Aqueduct. Of course, we know what Tapit Trice has come back to do. He won the Tampa Bay Derby. He'll be favored in the Bluegrass at Keeneland on Saturday. Since that race, Slip Mahoney came back to graduate, and then nothing went right for him in the Gotham.
Yeah, the Gotham's a pretty confounding race for him, though, Dan. I mean, the more I looked at it, the harder it was for me to really explain what happened there. A horse who had shown good speed going the mile in his prior 2 starts, and all of a sudden he's just totally distanced early in that race, way too far back early. He made a run around the turn. He got forced very wide as that field came to the stretch. All in all, I thought he did well just to get up for second in that race. I did not think it was a poor performance. I still can't understand how he got so far away early. We'll see what kind of trip he pulls in here. I think he can get a better one. I think this horse has some talent, Dan, and he's bred to stretch out. I mean, he has all distance on the bottom of his pedigree.
He still, despite the trip last time out, finished ahead of 3 of these foes, and the 4th place finisher of the Gotham came back to win the Hot Springs at Oaklawn with an 80 buyer. He's also reunited with Dylan Davis, who was aboard for his win 2 starts back and who has gotten this horse close to the pace in the past. Clear the air, the number 6 is going to withdraw and run in the Bluegrass, so we'll move on to the 7, Arctic Arrogance, another quality New York bred, this one trained by Linda Rice, coming into this race off 3 consecutive runner-up efforts. Second in the Grade 2 Remsen, second in the Jerome, second in the Withers. This is a horse that had his chances in the Remsen and Jerome, Mike. It looked like he had big opportunities to win. Some might argue he hung. Maybe he wasn't good enough. I thought he ran well in all 3 of those races with okay figures. Note that he did miss the Gotham due to illness.
Yeah, those 2 races, I agree with you, Dan. He ran fine in both the Remsen and the Jerome. You know, the problem is he didn't have an excuse either time, and he was short prices. And I guess you could also just go back and look at that Remsen now and wonder, I mean, you know, how good was that race really? Because the winner of that race has been terrible since then. Arctic Arrogance, he's run fine in his 2 starts since then, but he has regressed, at least as far as figures go. And ultimately, last time, I think he got the trip that they wanted him to get, and he was no match for Hit Show. We'll see if he can turn the tables this time. I think this horse is okay. I'm just, getting a little tired of him at this point, and it's not like he's going to be some kind of great price in here.
Safi Joseph has the 8, Lord Miles, coming up from Tampa Bay, where he finished an even 3rd in the Tampa Bay Derby, behind the aforementioned Tapit Trice. This is another horse that has a sort of grinding style that would appreciate, I would think, longer distances. But there's a major question. How good is he stepping up again into a Grade 2?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a real question about how good he is. I mean, his trainer and his connections have treated him like they think he's pretty good. But he hasn't really done any running in those last 2 starts since they stretched him out yet. I mean, he did absolutely nothing in the Holy Bull, and he got a good trip last time, and he just wasn't really close to good enough in there. I mean, this horse has to improve a lot, I think, to win this race.
Todd Pletcher soldiers on with the 6th race maiden, the number 9 Croupy, an expensive son of Curlin. And this horse you might not want to treat as your average maiden because he gave Slip Mahoney a fight 2 starts back, losing only by a head. They ran him in the Risen Star last time out. Not a good post, didn't break very well, also didn't do much running. But another horse that if you give him some pace, I think this distance is very good for him.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. I mean, he's going to have to find a way to finally take that step forward that he needs to take if he's going to be competitive, not even in races like this, just in any kind of race going forward. I don't care too much about the Risen Star last time. He got way too far away in there, but he was running at the end. It was just a much tougher field. I'll say this about his race 2 starts back is pretty good. Slip Mahoney ran well that day, but so did this horse. He had to make a long run just to get up to contention there. And he stayed really gamely through the stretch. The only other time they went 9 furlongs with him back in November, he got a terrible trip in that race and ran way better than it looks. I think he's a player in this race.
And to highlight the quality of the horses he faced last time out, the 3rd place finisher, Two Phils, won the Jeff Ruby Stakes with a triple-digit buyer. Angel of Empire, the winner, of course, came back to win the Arkansas Derby. The number 10 is Uncle Jake. This horse was trained by Bob Baffert in Southern California, raced once sprinting, didn't really break very well, was on a hard chase, transferred to Brittany Russell. He found the competition in the Pickens Much better going a 1-turn mile at Laurel. This was a race in which he sat off the lead at 1-5. He pours it on in the stretch. The Fig didn't come back very fast, but this horse is well bred, well connected, and has some speed.
Yeah, those things are all true. I mean, his debut, it just sort of felt like he didn't really want to sprint. He also happened to land in a pretty tough maiden special weight going six. He obviously runs fine in here. Seems like he beat a pretty weak field, Dan, but I won't knock the performance. The figure didn't come back that strong, but there's some upside here. You're supposed to get a price if you like him.
Pletcher has the 11 Classic Catch, and this is a horse that looks like sort of a late developer for Todd. He's by Classic Empire. He's won 2 of his last 3 races, and he really likes distance. Both wins have come at 1.125 miles, including this first level allowance last time out at Gulfstream Park, where he just swept by the field and keeps on going. He has potential. I wonder if this is a little bit too much too soon, but I want to keep an eye on him for a little bit later in the year.
I do too, Dan. I mean, listen, I like this horse so far. I think it's fair to wonder how good he actually is. But both of his wins at 9 furlongs are good performances, and they're both races where he was doing his best running at the end of those races. The one here in November, again, that's that race where Croupy just got an absolutely terrible trip, but this horse still ran fine in that race. I like the way that he stays on at the end. He's going to have to take a step forward in here, but that's far from impossible.
12, Mr. Swagger is asking a lot in his third lifetime start, stretching him out around 2 turns for the first time. He was a good-looking debut winner sprinting. In the Gotham, sort of in and among horses, up close to a fast pace, you can give him an excuse for that race. I would expect they're going to be very aggressive with him getting out of the gate, but if the pace is fast at this longer distance against these tougher horses, it could work against him. Don't want to knock him too much. He's going to be a very playable price if you believe.
Yeah, that was my take on him too, Dan. I think they're going to get aggressive with him here and probably try to make the lead. Ultimately, in the Gotham, that pace was just really fast, and he wound up chasing it, and he got a little bit tired in there. It was also over a wet track. His debut was a good performance. He did a lot of good things that day and earned a solid figure.
Hit Show comes into this race off a win in the Withers. Showed he could handle 1.125 miles that day. He had another running 3-year-old from the Brad Cox barn. Let's watch the Withers right now. Arctic Arrogance, who was wearing blinkers that day, was able to get to the lead. He is clear turning into the stretch. Hit Show is just better than him. And in this race, Hit Show is a lot better. He ran by Arctic Arrogance and he wins by open lengths. Now he's going to have to do it from a tough outside post position, but there's no doubt this horse has plenty of quality.
Yeah, this horse is good. He's basically run well in all of his starts, and he really finishes in his races too. So that's a real bonus for this horse. He gets good trips, but he also, when it's time to run through the stretch, he runs. He got a perfect trip when he won that Wither, as you can see. Once he got by Arctic Arrogance, there was nobody else in there, Dan. He didn't have to worry about anybody coming from behind him. This is a better field. He's got a terrible post in here, but I think this horse is good. He's the horse to beat.
5-2 on the morning line. Again, Franco for Cox. Let's take a look at our top picks for the Wood Memorial. Mike, you're going with Slip Mahoney. You're keeping the faith. I think getting back to Dylan Davis is going to help because with Dylan, this horse showed that tactical speed 2 and 3 starts back. And I'm not saying he's going to be on the lead or 2 or 3 off of it, but I'm not saying he's going to be 50 out of it as well. I think a mid-pack trip behind a solid pace works for him.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping too, Dan. I mean, I'm not way against Hit Show as the favorite here, even with the far outside post. I think that horse is pretty good, but I just felt like I could take a shot against him here with somebody at a better price. And I'll be honest, I was really torn between Slip Mahoney and Croupy. Croupy is a horse I definitely want to use in here. He's going to need a trip, and he's not really my kind of horse with that running style, but I think he's better than he looks on paper.
A lot of questions that Arctic Arrogance has to answer. A, I think 1.125 miles against good horses is a big question. And B, is he fast enough to get to the lead with some other quick ones from the outside? I think of the speed horses, he might have the most quality speed. I like them taking the blinkers off, maybe to try to get him to relax a little bit. I can't take anything less than that morning line of 6-1, considering that he missed the Gotham as well due to illness. But he's a very consistent runner. 5, 13, 9, 11 for Mike. 7, 13, 1, 8 for me. We both respect Hit Show. We're both going to try to beat him as he's mired in the outside post in the Wood Memorial.